What's going on YouTube? Josh here checking in. We are back with another video today. We're going to talk about the pros and the cons of cheat reps. So just so we're all on the same page here, what are cheat reps? Cheat reps are basically just cheating with your range of motion. They're cheating so that way your rep is not a perfect clean rep, okay? So that's to say, for example, if you were doing bicep curls, instead of, keeping your elbows nice and tight and going just like this, not moving your back at all, maybe you would do a little bit of this, okay? You're doing a little bit of that, okay? So maybe you're doing rows, for example. You're doing bent over rows, and instead of keeping your back perfectly like this, maybe you're swaying a little bit. And so that's a cheat rep. That's all that it is, guys. So the movements that you do this with are generally going to be bicep kind of movements and upper back kind of movements. So be it shrugs or rows, any of those kind of variations are typically suitable for cheat reps. There are a few other things along the way, but in general, you're not going to be doing cheat reps for things like bench press or overhead press or squats or deadlifts, because those, if you can't make it, you're just going to fail, and cheating your sort of form is just too high risk for injury, or it's not even possible. So let's get right into it. Why would you do cheat reps? Let's go over some of the pros and cons of this movement variation. All right, so our first pro, it's good for the ego. Everybody knows that. You're lifting more weight. That feels good, man. It feels good when you're lifting a lot of weight. You feel like a boss. That's gotta be good for something. Honestly though, when you're just going ham and you're pushing it and you're doing a lot more weight than you used to, maybe your form's not that great, but it feels good. It feels good to lift a lot of weight, So stroke that ego, do some cheat reps. All right, so what about a con? Why would you not do this? Well, there's increased injury risk. The bottom line is you're just moving more weight than you're used to. And you're not using good form. So whoever tells you that there's not an increased risk of injury is an imbecile. I said it, okay? Anybody who tells you that cheat reps are benign, everybody should be doing cheat reps, is an imbecile. There's a risk, it's a calculated risk, it's something you need to take into consideration. When it comes to this injury risk, there are a few things that go into this, okay? First off, you need to think about your biceps, okay? This tendon ruptures, okay? It does. There's a point at which it breaks. And since most of these movements are for bicep movements and back movements, this tendon is at risk of rupturing. Probably not so much on the bicep movements, but more so for those back movements, because the weight that you're moving is a lot heavier. If you're doing bent over rows and you can do it with strict form for 225, but you decide to do 405, there's a chance that you're gonna overload that tendon and it's gonna snap, okay? That's just the bottom line. So when it comes to this injury risk, the thing that you need to know is that basically your risk is significantly higher the more you're pushing the weight versus what you're used to doing. So for example, if you're used to doing cheat reps and you're slowly sort of increase the weight that you do with those cheat reps, your connective tissues, your muscles, your tendons, your bones even, are gonna pick up and they're gonna get stronger. But if you're used to doing perfectly strict form and then all of a sudden you throw on 150% of the weight that you're used to working with, and you try and do cheat reps with that, your risk of injury is much greater, okay? So basically what I'm saying in short is, if you're used to doing cheat reps, slowly make a progression that will reduce your risk of injury. If you're not used to doing cheat reps, don't just go ham, throw on a lot more weight than you're used to. You should kind of go into this slowly as you do with any other kind of movement. What's another advantage of doing cheat reps? As I alluded to earlier, you use heavier weight, right? More weight, more muscle. That's kind of the theory, right? So you're lifting quite a bit more weight than you were before, and that should be good because that puts more tension on the muscle, and tension on the muscle is a huge driver behind making your muscles bigger and stronger, right? That's how it works. That's why a lot of beginner programs work on just adding weight, because that's a huge driver behind making your muscles bigger. Why would you not do that? So when you increase the weight though, the downside of that is that you deal with two things. One, you have decreased time under tension, and two, potentially decreased or just completely different range of motion. So let's talk about that first thing, time under tension. That's just basically how many seconds your muscles are under tension during the reps, during the total sets, okay? This is just fact because you're kind of like, you know, moving the weight a little bit and you're probably gonna have a little bit less time under tension. How much of a difference does that make? Honestly, not that much. Most of the research when it comes to hypertrophy shows that all this stuff about time under tension really is much less relevant than a lot of those other factors, such as just total tension, which has a lot more to do with the weight than how much time is under tension. This is why a lot of those methods like the slow burn method, where you just do all your reps super slowly and your goal is to increase time under tension, don't really pan out. Okay, so some people will say that that's a downside. Personally, the amount is relatively negligible and I would argue it's not really that big of a difference. What you will see though is decreased range of motion. So what'll happen is either you're not going to go through the full range of motion or the range of motion will just be very different, okay? So for example, let's talk about rows. When you're doing a bent over barbell row, if you're bent over and your back is almost perpendicular, you're gonna have kind of a range of motion. Your arms are gonna be where this marker looks like. But if you're keep rocking back and forth as you're doing your cheat rep, eventually you're gonna start being more upright. And what's gonna happen then is you're gonna actually be hitting different muscles. You're gonna be hitting more of like the upper traps, more of the traps than of your lats, okay? And that might be the desired effect, but that's something to keep in mind, that you're not really doing the same movement, okay? But sometimes also you'll find that you're just cheating so much that you're not even able to do the same complete range of motion. For example, if you're doing rows, you might not be able to if you're doing barbell rows, you might not be able to bring that bar all the way to your chest. You might be able to kind of come to here, maybe pretty close, but not all the way there. So that's something to keep in mind. You're using more weight, but you could be sacrificing range of motion as far as a total range of motion, and most likely you're using a different range of motion, so you might be targeting muscles a little bit differently. What does this mean? You got some good stuff here, good for the ego, you lift more weight, so you have more tension on the muscles, increased risk of injury, some decreased time under tension, and some decreased range of motion. What do we do with this? Should you use cheat reps? Is it worth it? Here's the deal, guys. There are people who will tell you cheat reps are really bad, right? The cons, they focus on the bad. They'll tell you you should never do cheat reps. All of your reps should be perfect form because that's the only way to do it. That's the way to make your gains. And I think that's kind of bullshit. On the flip side, there are going to be guys that tell you that these are the panacea. This is how you're going to get swole. This is how you're going to get that huge back, you're going to get those huge arms, because this one guy on the internet, he was doing perfect form and then he switched to cheat reps and he got super huge. And that's the way that you guys should do it. The reality is, it's probably somewhere in the middle. Like most topics, I tend to fall kind of in that middle ground. So why do I say that? If you consider these risks as a calculated risk, meaning you're not an idiot about using cheat reps, you use them strategically, you don't do it all the time, you sort of do a slow progression, I would argue that's a relatively low risk. It feels good, you do more weight so you get more tension, you might use some decreased range of motion, and might also use a different range of motion, so for that reason, I wouldn't recommend using it all the time, okay? If you're gonna do cheat reps, it's up to you. I personally use them in my training. I use them, maybe 1/3 of the time I do a movement. So if I'm gonna do a back, do more of a pulling kind of focused workout, during that workout, every 3 workouts, I'll incorporate cheat reps as the primary way I do it. Another way to do it is you can do 2/3 of your work as sort of more strict form and then 1/3 with cheat reps. This kind of 1/3 rule, I just made up myself. That's what I personally use. I wouldn't use more than half your reps as cheat reps, because then at some point you sort of lose track of what is even a real rep. And the other thing to consider when you're using these sort of cheat reps, it's very hard to gauge one rep to the next as far as how much you're getting stronger. Are you actually getting stronger, or are you really just cheating more? Right? That's why it's really good just for your own progress to continue using regular repetitions. You want to see something that's sort of strict that you can measure objectively. When you're doing these cheat reps, it gets kind of gray, okay? And so you might not be able to tell that very well. Alright, so one last thing I wanted to say before closing this video is sometimes you'll see people on the internet say, I got super swole doing cheat reps, I used to do perfect form before. Why does this happen? Is it because cheat reps are awesome? No. That's not why this happens, okay? This happens because it's like doing a new movement. When you, like I was saying before, with range of motion, that range of motion gets changed, okay? So when you incorporate new ways of doing a movement, when you incorporate new ranges of motion, a new stimulus to your body, especially if you've been training for a long time, that's gonna be a greater stimulus for growth than, say, just trying to add a little bit of weight or increase your volume slightly on a movement that you've been doing before. That's one of the reasons why it's really important to mix up your training, incorporate new variables, incorporate new movements into your training so it doesn't get stale, so you can see more gains, so you can make progress, okay? That's why that occurs. Of course, it also occurs because you're lifting more weight, but a lot of this has to do with the fact that you're practically doing a new movement, okay? So at some point, those gains, they slow down and you plateau again. So this is not the panacea, like I said before. There are pros, there are cons. Are you guys using cheat reps? What do you think about it? Any questions, post them in the comment section below. I'll catch you guys in the next video. I'm sorry this went long. I wanted to give you guys an in-depth discussion on this, share my thoughts, and I haven't made a video in way too long, so that's what you got. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.